will only get a copy of at the very end of our program today, is an homage to all Indian women scientists and a recognition by UNESCO of their indomitable commitment to science. Of course, it is not a coincidence if we chose the occasion of International Women's Day for the launch of our publication. Worldwide, despite some progress, women still account for about 30% of all researchers. India is no exception, and despite naturally accounting for 50% of the country's population, women are still underrepresented in university faculties and professional careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics make up, as I'm sure many of you know, the acronym STEM that you will hear a lot today. Of course, throughout the last decades, India has achieved very significant progress in supporting science education for girls at the school level, easing Indian women's access to higher level science studies, and assisting them in their scientific careers. In a few minutes, you will see a number of graphs and figures that clearly illustrate this fact. But there is no denying that Indian women scientists, like women scientists everywhere, confront numerous obvious and invisible restrictions and challenges in their personal lives and career paths. So we will introduce you today to many Indian women scientists during the course of our presentation, and I know that some of them are here with us today. Welcome, welcome, Susan. We have a front row seat for you. Sorry, we just started. Yeah. So we will introduce you today to many Indian women scientists, and you can already start seeing some of them on the screen behind me. I'll move out of the way with short quotes from our encounters with them. So, on the occasion of this year's International Women's Day, we really wanted to provide a comprehensive overview of what has already been achieved in India by and for women scientists, outline the remaining obstacles, you will see that there are many, and also make suggestions on how to further improve the situation. We wanted to offer new ideas and translate them into actionable recommendations for better retaining and promoting Indian women in science education and careers. During the course of our research, we discovered that analysts and commentators frequently present female scientists' career progression and decisions in a very linear style, which rarely corresponds to reality. Instead, what you will find in our book is more complex, and we have therefore proposed to visualize the lives and careers of Indian women in science as a so-called braided river, much like India's great Brahmaputra river. The concept of a braided river, if you're not familiar with it, is that it is often forced to change its course, but remains perennial, resilient, and full of life. In the same way, a woman scientist must face and overcome many obstacles and must adapt to many twists and turns. During our presentation, you will hear from many of these scientists, and you can be sure that today is not going to be, where is Radhika, one of our these famous manuals where there's only men who speak. I'm unfortunately one of the couple of token men who will be speaking today, but you will hear almost exclusively today from women scientists who work with great passion and excel in their respective fields. Again, I'm very happy that some of them who are featured in the book are here with us today. I'm sure they'll recognize themselves. We have some fantastic portraits, and that's what I wanted to mention here, is that in addition to the very careful selection of words that are part of our findings and recommendations, we wanted to feature visually a meaningful selection of the formidable women scientists of India to learn about their daily routines and the biases they face, and most importantly, to showcase the fierce pride they take in their work. you will find that the images in the book challenge all the stereotypes that exist about scientists in general, and of course, in this case, women scientists. In this regard, we were able to rely on the sensitive and poetic vision of Laotian-born international photographer Lam Duc Yen. He was able to join us in India for a month last December and has given our publication a vibrant aspect. All of the images in our publication are his, and I'm sure only for this publication. And you will agree with me that indeed they challenge, you can see that already, the stereotype of scientists that we may have, in this case, women scientists. I actually spoke to Yen last night. He was at the Polish-Ukrainian border documenting the situation there. It's obviously a very different type of situation. And we're thinking of him. Thank you, Yen, in case you're able to catch the live link. In addition to the photographs, I'm a bit long, but only at the beginning, don't worry, which capture a range of emotions, we've also prepared a set of videos to accompany the publication. We shot material and interviewed women scientists in 3 different cities. Photographs were in many more cities. So Mumbai, Bengaluru, and New Delhi to develop the videos that you're going to see today and illustrate our publication. All of this material, by the way, I really want to insist on that, is available free of rights, and you will find it on our website, social media channels, and more. If you are interested in using this material, any of this material, the report, the videos, the photographs, by all means do so. That's what it's there for. The more people use it, the better. Okay, this is where I stop. And to jump right into the matter and set today's context, let's watch our first video segment, which presents the portrait of a woman scientist.
Born in Coorg, in the Indian state of Karnataka, Professor Thelma grew up around strong female role models. Education was always a priority, and her home environment encouraged her to learn. Dr. Thelma wanted to be a medical doctor before diving deep into the world of human genetics. An eminent and notable geneticist, she is currently a professor at the University of Delhi.
Uncovering the truth behind health and illness was something which was really intriguing always to me. So that really was the reason for me to take that up. And then, of course, coming from a small town, I really think I really didn't have anybody in particular who influenced me. But I must say, family support was huge, and that's what got me where I am today. Family support, the trust they have, the confidence they have in you is so important. The satisfaction that I have in having pursued my passion, and for having gotten so many opportunities all along the way over my close to 35 years or 40 years of research. Every project led to another, and I think it has been the most satisfying. You really take life back to the lab. So to be practical, yes. To be patient, another one. To be enduring. And I would also say, every day is new. You have to be solution-oriented. I've always believed, we are always riddled with problems at work. Doesn't matter, men or women. But I believe in the saying that don't tell the world about your labor pains, show them the baby. A woman has to work, I think, 3 times as hard to get where a man is. For a woman, between 30 and 35 on an average is like a really critical period. But so is that period also for a profession. So if you really give them that allowance of that 5 years for family, and then I think you will see dramatic results. So I really wish that's something which I would like to see during my lifetime, that women get that kind of support. We can't really talk about women in science or men in science. We need good scientists. Women probably, limited time on their hand because of various responsibilities that they have otherwise, even in today's context. I think are far more sincere. They utilize their time to the maximum. and they would probably contribute a lot more if a little support system is provided to them. So I am, so if given an opportunity, I wouldn't distinguish whether it's a male or a female, right? I would go by their potential and their capabilities to deliver. If you are really keen on science, it's the best thing that you can do, because there is so much excitement, there is so much to uncover, and every day, as I said, is new.
So this is the portrait of one Indian woman scientist, but you will see that in many ways it sets the tone for many of the discussions to come this morning. At this point, I would like to really give the floor to Dr. Bhavani Rao, UNESCO Chair in Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment and a distinguished professor at Amrita University. Dr. Bhavani is the lead author of our publication. She worked with a team, and she will explain to us, on behalf of the team, one I think at least is here with us today, the complexity of preparing the text of the report. And Bhavani, before I start, I really want to, again, wholeheartedly thank you and your team for the indefatigable effort that you have put into the development of a braided river. Please.
Thank you, Eric. I should thank you for the opportunity. It's okay with my mask, right? I don't sound too muffled. Yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity, and it also helped us utilize the opportunity to really take a look at the world of women in science. Since you asked me about the challenges, I have to touch upon what was the difficult part of actually preparing for this report. Had a wonderful team working on it. Round of applause to some of them who were working on it. So they put in many, many hours, and it was on a very short timeline, and they did a wonderful job of it. But I think this, oh, the picture changed. But the picture that we had in the beginning about the braided river, I think it gives us a very good idea. It says a braided river. We had to follow just a few tributaries. We could not really explore the entire braided river. And a part of the whole understanding is to be able to understand the whole system before you can actually treat what are the problems. And it's like the tree, there's so much that is under the ground that we can't really see. And we didn't have the luxury to really explore. And so I think what we really struggled with was on the definitions even of science. And this is one of the first hurdles that we kind of faced. And then women in science. Have we really defined even those terms properly? Part of what really contributes to all the branching out is the sociocultural aspects that are there behind, which lie hidden, which are not so clearly manifest, but really cause you to change your directions. And this was something that we realized as we were doing this report, this was something that was so important. And so I would request also UNESCO, let us demystify science. Science is not just what we learn in the universities. Women have been doing science forever. You know your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers, the knowledge they had about plants, indigenous species. There's so much of science that women had the right and the knowledge of. Cultural science, or heritage science, if you want to call it. We've never really categorized it and classified it. And I think demystifying science is something that is so important that we figured we could not really grasp in actually preparing this report, and that we would really love for UNESCO to maybe take it up at the next level. Second is also, of course, and I'll just mention it, but I'm sure that there are other speakers who will talk about it in a little greater detail, is the lack of good data. So this is something that we really struggled with. Data not just in terms of, we could get numbers for sure, but the progress of women in science is something that we really couldn't get a very good sense of from the data that is readily available. Second thing that we could not really get an idea of was women in industry. This is something, there's no really readily available data sets for us to explore this in depth. So this report is really a teaser for us to do a lot more work. And so, yeah, this is what I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity again.
Thank you so much, Bhavani, for flying from Kerala to be with us today. At this juncture, I would like to share the message of support that we have received from Dr. Jitendra Singh, the Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, Dr. Singh is a physician known for his work on diabetes and endocrinology. He has been a professor and a clinical practitioner, and he's also the author of 8 books.
Namaste, greetings to all, distinguished members of the scientific fraternity, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, on behalf of the Government of India, headed by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, I would like to congratulate Mr. Eric Falt, Director of the UNESCO office in New Delhi, and his entire team for coming out with such a valuable publication highlighting the role of Indian women in science and giving it an insightful title, A Braided River, the universe of Indian women in science, which truly captures the pathways of women scientists embedded with hope, aspiration, struggle and accomplishment. The launch of this book, I must say, is appropriate also because the world celebrates International Women's Day tomorrow, that is on the 8th of March, and the theme of which this year is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. It recognizes the contribution of women who are leading the movement on climate change adaptation, mitigation and response to build a future for all. Ladies and gentlemen, India under Prime Minister Modi has made considerable efforts for gender equality in science. And if you recall, in the recent past, India has mobilized a number of flagship fellowship programs, grants and policies focusing on bringing in more and more women and girls into science and retaining women in scientific career. But at the same time, I must admit, still much more needs to be done. The Indian economy today needs participation of women scientists. Mobilizing women, therefore, into science streams is essential for attaining technology-led economic growth, addressing national and global issues, and realizing the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2021 and 2022, India celebrates Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which highlights 75 years of independence and is dedicated to the people who contributed to the making of a strong nation. India acknowledges the contribution of women who have invested their knowledge, skill, time, experience and effort in all aspects of life, including in science and technology. I acknowledge the courage and resilience showcased by women scientists and their contribution to the building of a sustainable future for all of us. And therefore, at the end, I would conclude by making a humble appeal. Let's all work together. Let's work together, women and men, to build a self-reliant and a strong nation. Thank you. Namaste.
I want to thank the Honourable Minister and also recognize the support of the Ministry of Science and Technology for our book, which is highly appreciated. In our publication, we looked closely at the key aspects ensuring that young girls develop an interest in science and take up science as a career. Quite clearly, and it certainly befits the mandate of UNESCO, we found that it starts with access to science education from a young age. That is one of the imperatives. So this is one of the aspects that we want to emphasize today.
Any career in science often begins with an early exposure to science training and education. While all learning environments are not supportive, young girls have found unique ways to dive into the mysterious world of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
I was always very curious about everything around me, and I believe that science can answer all our questions, and that encouraged me to pursue science.
According to a 2022 publication by UNESCO focusing on Indian women in science, it is important to attract and inspire young girls and women in different science disciplines by bringing to them appropriate exposure at an early age. Kamakshi from New Delhi tells us about her experience as a Kalpana Fellow at Vigyan Shala, an organization that is making STEM inclusive for girls.
It is a good community where people don't judge you for asking questions. Even they promote you to, speak up, ask questions, and as many questions you want to ask. Kalpana Fellowship helped me to come up with the idea that if I want to go for research, then how should I make a road plan, how to get into that thing, how to design my experiments that I will be capable of learning on my own.
The Agastya International Foundation, with its operations spread out across India, is a non-profit civil society organization that exposes young girls to exciting science explorations and experiments in school settings to spark curiosity.
Our aim, our motto, our raison d'etre is to give every child the aha, ha-ha feeling when they do science.
The private sector has also initiated programs to enhance participation of young girls in science, providing them with opportunities and resources to envision a future in science. IBM's STEM for Girls is one such initiative that supports the aspirations of young girls and prepares them for a future in technology.
STEM for Girls is an initiative by IBM, which is a great program to bring in digital literacy and technology education to girls in India. It has impacted 2 lakh girls in 12 states across 120 districts.
A foundation of scientific curiosity in young girls and women further encourages them to pursue scientific careers and navigate through different pathways in science, transforming them into women who will naturally become catalysts and champions of change for generations to come.
As we just saw, sensitizing girls at a young age clearly has the potential to empower them and invite them to touch the sky. And here I would like to introduce a young person who thinks of herself as an artist who loves science. Very recently, she has authored and launched a book entitled The Gutsy Girls of Science. Her name is Elena Singh, and she's 16 years old. Her book, published just a couple of weeks ago by HarperCollins, explores the contribution of some remarkable Indian women. It is a celebration of their lives and the wonderful world of science. If you were interested also, maybe I should mention that you can find in the print a joint op-ed that Elena and I published together last year on the subject of women in science. I think it was my first op-ed with a then 15-year-old. And Elena, please tell us why you were inspired by these women, and tell us about your experience of writing this book. Please come up.
So thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I actually got inspired by these women when I was doing my own research while selecting, my subject for school. And I realized that we have a serious lack of female scientists as role models for young girls. And around that time, I came across a tweet by Smriti Rani that was displaying 11 women who were acknowledged by the government. And I realized I'd never heard about any of these women in school before. And so I decided to, make their portraits, write a few poems and some essays on their lives, and to, educate young girls like myself about these amazing women who might inspire them to take up science as well. And I think the main aim of my book is to be both, engaging and conversational, and put young girls at ease with the idea of science and STEM, which is often kind of displayed as this intimidating and challenging field. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us and sharing your experience. Afterwards, please feel free to talk to Elena. She has much more to say, of course, but we're keeping each intervention short today. At the university level, and according to the 2019-20 All India Survey on Higher Education, the interesting news is that more women than men are now graduating in a growing number of scientific disciplines as shown in this figure. As you can see, the number of women per 100 male students enrolled in Bachelor of Science programs, as well as Masters of Science programs, has been increasing at a steady rate. For instance, as you see here, in the year 2015-16, there were 93 women per 100 men studying at the Bachelor of Science level, but 5 years down the line, in 2019-20, we have 113 women per 100 men enrolled in the Bachelor of Science program. We see similar trends with even a greater number of women enrolling in Master of Science programs year on year. But, while a significantly higher number of women are acquiring scientific degrees when compared with men, we will see in a moment that women remain a minority among persons, let's say, employed in science in India. So why is there this inconsistency? One would assume, of course, that given the higher number of female graduates, there would be more female professionals. So where do these young girls and women go? When do they drop out? Well, this is analyzed in this figure, and there's much more in the publication, so we're just giving you snippets here. So we've seen in our studies that from women currently working in science, 14.6% of those we sampled tell us that they left their jobs pre-marriage, and 30.6% of the women left before having their first child. The numbers remain quite high after the delivery of a first child as well, with almost 38% of the women leaving their jobs then. After having another child, not everyone, of course, but another 17% of the women left their jobs, which really shows how difficult it gets for mothers in particular to have appropriate work-life balance. In this context, we would like to show you a video based on the publication that we developed to highlight the important need of providing women with gender-inclusive benefits and work-life balance.
Difficulty in balancing family life and work has a big role to play in women opting out of scientific careers. Institutions and funding agencies need to work harder to reverse this disparity by ensuring a better work-life balance, while incentivizing women to join traditionally male-dominated fields. Pamela Tikku, one of the few women leaders in the automotive industry, discusses these challenges.
Women-inclusive infrastructure is missing in a big way. There are no formal crutches which should be provided for women to take care of their children, because women are expected to be primary caretakers. This is missing both in government sector as well as in private sector. There are other provisions, like in other developed countries you find that there are options of time out for women. You know, they can take a time out and they can rejoin after taking care of their children, while such provisions are not available in the country.
Socio-cultural norms and gender stereotypes are some of the factors responsible for women giving up on practicing science. Sarita Ehlawat, co-founder of Bot Labs, India's pioneering drone startup, shares her experience.
If you ask me, I think running home is also a full-time job. So if the burden is not shared, so it becomes difficult, and we lose very many talented women.
According to a 2022 UNESCO Women in Science report, focused efforts are required to incorporate gender-inclusive benefits and flexible work time arrangements to retain women in science. The NASSCOM Foundation is enhancing technological skills of women at early and mid-career levels in order to explore better employment opportunities despite a career break.
We have created a lot of programs where we are upskilling and skilling women to be a part of the industry, and we also work with a lot of partners in finding them placements. Also, you know, within the industry itself, we are running a few programs where we are helping existing workforce to upskill and grow and sustain themselves in the industry. If we are able to decrease the gender gap in the tech industry, there will be an increase of $12 to $28 trillion in the global economy.
One of the most interesting exercises that we undertook also in our publication was to compare the trajectories of men and women throughout their careers, with a specific focus on how gender plays a role in hiring requirements, career gaps, and the timing of promotions. This piece of data presents information from some of the best institutions in India. We realize, of course, that this analysis is not comprehensive at all of what happens in the entire country, but and actually we believe that this is one of the areas where further research is needed. You heard from Bhavani at the beginning, and that's also one of the things we'll discuss in a moment. We need more research on some of these areas. But here you can see, for instance, at IIT Bombay, the percentage of women that are part of various scientific departments is still very low, and globally under 20%. While not enough, by comparison, the Manipal Academy of Higher Education has a high share with about 40% on average of women in the same departments. So that is where we studied at length the systemic gender inequality and invisible biases that exist and prevent women's careers from developing. In this context, I would like to share this video interview with Professor Rohini Godbole, who, as you will see, shared her thoughts in her very own emphatic style.
A leading physicist, best known for her work in particle phenomenology, Professor Rohini Godbole is a recipient of the Padma Shri, one of the most prestigious civilian awards in India. After spending 25 years as a professor of high-energy physics at the Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru, Karnataka, Professor Godbole feels that learning never really ends, although there are some things she'd wish that people would unlearn.
There is one argument that I've always heard, that women shy away from taking leadership positions. But to be honest, I have not known a single woman who said no when she was offered a leadership position because she wanted to balance her career and family. So this is a myth that women cannot lead. I feel that these biases are actually the invisible challenges that women have to fight against, so they are very important. So, first is a career in science, either with or without field work, is just not quite suitable for a woman to balance her career and family. That's the biggest bias that we have going around. Then somehow balancing career and family is a woman's responsibility. That is the second bias, if you wish. Then the third very interesting bias, which I have heard often enough, women are not interested in research. Then the other one is, women are very good technically. Once the job is given to them, they can do it. But they cannot seed ideas. See, in science, the most important thing is how can you seed ideas. So that's why this becomes something very specific to science. Women don't have originality. Actually, I'll tell you something very interesting. One bias is if a woman is working alone, or she can't be part of a team, she is not a team player. And if she is a very good collaborator, she doesn't have originality, she only collaborates. So it's the same piece of data which you interpret differently because of the biases about women. For a man, you would exactly draw opposite conclusions from the same piece of data. So, all this, particularly for science, when you are questioned, your originality is questioned, your authority is questioned, that's a very bad thing. I cannot tell you that I didn't suffer from those biases, because at a certain point, once you prove yourself, your science takes priority. But till you reach that point, these biases can actually be very damaging.
Professor Godbole also served on our editorial board, and she was definitely a guiding light for our research. As you can guess, she was never shy about sharing her views and telling us if we were going in the wrong direction. Bhavani and her team know that very well. She couldn't be with us today, but I hope that she will be satisfied with the outcome of her work. By the way, you may have noticed that she's a specialist in phenomenology. I had no idea what that is. So for those of you who, like me, didn't know, phenomenology is the study of the appearance of things, or the study of ways in which we experience things. Very specific indeed. I will now going to invite our UN resident coordinator in India, Shombi Sharp, who has devoted more than 25 years of his career to promote inclusive and sustainable development internationally. He brings to us a wealth of experience that he has acquired in the United Nations and externally. Shombi, thank you so much for joining us today. And I will ask you from a UN perspective, could you please maybe highlight the importance of the science-related sustainable development goals and Agenda 2030? I'm going to ask later Susan, our colleague from UN Women, to address perhaps more specifically also how these SDGs interact with the SDG 5, which focuses on gender equality. Shombi.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. Namaskar to everybody. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here on behalf of the entire UN country team, UN system here in India, and many of my colleagues are here joining as well. So appreciating you, Eric, in organizing this important process, and wish to especially welcome and acknowledge all of the women in science here in the room, and this fantastic effort, the Braided River. I think that, as was mentioned, tomorrow is the International Women's Day, and it's very appropriate that we be celebrating today a day early, and we should celebrate the day after and every day after, because every day should be International Women's Day. I think this is the point, and I really I believe that the importance of this initiative to recognize women in science today links so well with the global theme, gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Clearly, human capital is the engine of sustainable development. And without gender equality, this engine will not work, will not perform anywhere near its potential. So what I wanted to do, though, is to take a quick step back, actually in the spirit of the gutsy girls, to look at the past and to remember how it is that we've gotten here today, the successes that we're recognizing, and the challenges that still lay ahead. And I just wanted to, and I'm not sure if she is a gutsy girl in your book or not, but I wanted to remember and recall the courage of Dr. Kamala Sohoni, who was, as I understand, graduated first in her class in chemistry at the University of Bombay in 1934, was actually the first Indian woman to apply for a research fellowship in the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. Yet, she was rejected, first in her class, and was rejected. Now, in the spirit of a braided river, she did not give up, she did not take no for an answer, and she found a different way. And I guess drawing upon the inspiration of her idol, Mahatma Gandhi, she decided to stage a satyagraha in the director's office at the Institute. Eventually, he relented, and she became the very first Indian woman to earn a PhD in science, and that led to an illustrious career in biochemistry. So this courageous woman, following her heart and her passion, was able to help break a glass ceiling that led the way to so many more important women scientists. And yet, as we've seen, and thank you so much, Eric, for this really important data to shape our understanding, if the challenge now is not women in STEM education, undergraduate and graduate and master's and PhD, it's translating that into women in the science profession, absolutely. And this really is so critical as we face collective challenges in the world, climate change, pandemics, and the path towards the SDGs. So I wanted just to, again, recognize that the government of India is doing a lot in terms of supporting getting women into science, especially through the educational sphere. But we need to do so much more to overcome the social and the cultural biases and barriers and myths, as we heard so eloquently presented. Because if we do not achieve kisi se kam nahi, if we do not achieve Nari Shakti, then we will absolutely not achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So once again, let me just reiterate that we in the UN system here in India are prioritizing, actually over half of our initiatives are focusing squarely on promoting gender equality in a meaningful way, but we can all definitely do more together. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the rest of this presentation. Dhanyavad.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shombi, for joining us today. Please allow me to introduce now Professor Chandrima Shah, who's the president of the Indian National Science Academy, INSA, sorry. She was very supportive of our publication, and she has sent us a message where she mentions some of the key areas that we focused on in our report.
It is indeed a pleasure to be speaking at the launch of A Braided River, the Universe of Indian Women in Science. It is a timely publication at a time when gender disparity is a problem, and reducing the gap would be beneficial to the prosperity of the country. For identifying related problems and solutions, this publication analyzes available data and provides recommendations for necessary actions that can be initiated. Given the diversity in a large country like India, it is necessary to reiterate the unique challenges women face here. Ensuring retention of women in education and research remains a priority. Analyzing the existing data, this publication provides a basis for possible innovative solutions appropriate for implementation to attain the Sustainable Development Goals, where women in science are an integral part. The efficiently articulated report defines the subject in the context of India and analyzes the level of gender difference in sciences in a variety of sectors like education, career opportunities, and advancement of leadership positions. The analysis highlights the enormity of the problem in the context of sociological issues and explores the role of various stakeholders in improving the career prospects of women. It is important to inspire young women aspiring to become scientists so that they join the scientific endeavor of the country. With a large number of women as role models, women aspiring to build a career in science must get motivated. The rather slow pace of social change for a girl child to be encouraged to go into science is one of the major reasons for smaller number of women entering the field of STEM, which is science, technology, mathematics, and medicine. Therefore, policies need to be refined in collaboration with educators, policymakers, media, and the public to remodel the perceptions for women going into science. For scientific establishments, the creation of women-friendly setups is an absolute requirement, as that enables the family to function as a whole, both the man and the woman. Equal participation of men and women from different cultures makes the field of science more vibrant. This publication, I'm sure, will serve as a reference point to help bring about changes required for upliftment of women. Thank you.
As you will see in a moment, one of the 10 key recommendations that is contained in our report also suggests the need to promote mentorships for women in science and strengthen professional networks to advance the status of women to leadership positions. So you're now going to see some inspiring examples from Mumbai, Bengaluru, and New Delhi on the need to offer the right guidance to young women scientists in the course of their studies and their career. We believe in particular, and that is one of the key recommendations, as I said, that there's a need to institutionalize counseling and training initiatives that target young, vulnerable, poor, and underprivileged women.
Mentorship plays an important role in inspiring young girls and women to take up science. It helps in addressing gender stereotypes towards girls choosing science and taking up leadership roles. Young female scientists who are just starting out need professional support and guidance to succeed in the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. At the Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru, Karnataka, Professor Atrey Ghosh draws on her experience of teaching students coming from diverse backgrounds and admits that most girls don't have access to resources or the right guidance. She feels the scientific community has a responsibility to inspire young women in the field of science.
I think mentorship is really important. Things like outreach activities in which female scientists go into schools and talk about their science to young students. I think those kinds of things are really important to get these young minds interested in science.
Irrespective of their socio-economic background, girls deserve equal opportunity and access to mentorship to build a career in science. Here, we are at a Makers Lab in New Delhi, powered by the non-profit Feminist Approach to Technology, an organization that aims to create awareness and enhance technical skills of young girls from marginalized and underserved communities.
तो मेरे हिसाब से mentorship उतनी ही ज़रूरी है जितना हमें इन चीज़ों का एक्सेस होना ज़रूरी है, बिकॉज मैंने जितना लड़कियों के साथ काम करके अनुभव किया है कि अगर उन्हें गाइडेंस या एक मेंटरशिप देने के लिए एक पर्सन उनके साथ नहीं होता है तो उनके पे जो वही घर से जो दबाव या हमारे दोस्तों का कुछ प्रभाव होता है कि गर्ल्स क्या कर सकती हैं, वो बहुत हावी होता है उनके ऊपर। तो अगर उन्हें कोई वो कहते हैं ना पाथ दिखाने वाला पर्सन नहीं होता वहाँ पे, तो वो डिस्ट्रैक्शन बहुत होती है उनके में।
In Mumbai, TechNip Energies has a strong CSR program that focuses on providing quality education and guidance to girls through meaningful employee interaction.
I think women professionals who have established their career, accomplished certain success in the STEM field, they should come out as a role model. Through volunteering program, through mentorship program, they can face-to-face interact with these school-going young girls. They can talk to young women engineers and encourage them, put up an inspiration.
Let's also look at the Life of Science, a unique online platform of experiences of women and minorities in science collected on lab-hopping journeys across India. A collective that also inspires women through diverse stories and career journeys of leading Indian female scientists.
So when young girls in STEM look at the Life of Science platform and are able to see Indian women scientists who have been and are a part of the Indian science community, it makes it so much more of a possibility because you've seen people who made it and who are doing it.
UNESCO's 2022 Women in Science report suggests that we must promote mentorships for women in science and strengthen professional networks to advance the status of women to leadership positions. Space entrepreneur Sushmita Mohanty emphasizes the importance of having that sense of community.
I definitely think collectives and networks, they amplify friendships, they amplify sisterhood, they amplify collaborations. It's a great way to discuss what kind of professional hurdles you might be facing or what kind of scientific hurdles you might be facing. So I think collectives are always welcome.
So what we have here now on the screen is the percentage of women in various science-based associations and organizations. These are entities that have a coordinating role or have an influence on others. As you can note, in 2008, we still had a very low percentage of women in all these organizations. But one of the problems, again, is that the data is quite old and has not been updated. This is a major gap that we have identified. The availability of data when it comes to women scientists is still insufficient, and there is a need for more studies that unpack this subject. And here I'm going to turn to Dr. Namrata Gupta, an independent researcher based in Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh, and who flew from Lucknow for our event. Namrata, could you please comment on the need for more studies and sex disaggregated data regarding the status of women in science, please?
Thank you, Eric. Data and studies, why are they important? Because they help to unravel the complexity and scale of the problem of gender inequality. And they help the policymakers to target the right areas for the best results. A lack of sex disaggregated data is a major roadblock in understanding gender issues and thereby in tackling them. And we lack data, for example, on women, on institution-wise women and men faculty in various positions. There are surveys which could easily include various kinds of data. For example, there is an NIRF survey, National Institute of Ranking Framework, and it has data on the placements of students, number of UG, PG students, number of faculty members, number of PhDs, but there's no gender-wise breakup. If we have such data, we would know, for instance, whether women from various colleges opt for higher studies more or for placement, and how this varies with men. A huge amount of data is being collected on higher education now, but there are certain areas where data is absent. For instance, we do not know how many women and men drop out from various science degree programs in between, particularly during their PhDs. Gender intersects with caste and class, but we do not know the caste and class composition of men and women in higher education and science. Then we need studies to track careers of men and women in PG, PhD, and postdoctoral studies to understand their career preferences and impact of various factors in their careers. Then we also need to have information on women's participation in science and technology professions. Other than IT and research, the information is lacking in respect to these fields. For instance, how many women are employed as civil engineers or as aerospace engineers? Further, statistical data only tells us about the participation of women in science and technology. To understand the story behind the numbers, the challenges behind such participation, we need qualitative studies. There are no studies in India, for instance, to examine the informal context involved during the recruitment to faculty positions, or those that extensively analyze women's and men's experiences at various institutes to understand the critical issues needing consideration. In-depth qualitative studies of organizational structures, processes, informal environment, they help to identify unnoticeable barriers and unconscious biases. Studies and data are required not only to generate more information, but also to assess the existing policies to fill the critical policy gaps, with the ultimate aim of utilizing the potential of our scientists. Thank you.
Thank you, Namrata, for highlighting these important issues. Maybe a mention here to say that for each of our flagship UNESCO publications, we really place a premium on making sure that the work of our researchers, headed in this case by Dr. Rao, are extensively peer-reviewed. I've mentioned that we also have a high-level editorial board, which met 3 times in the progress of this report. I mentioned Dr. Godbole earlier, but I also want to mention that Namrata also served on the editorial board, and Dr. Akhilesh Gupta is also here with us today. Thank you very much for your precious input and advice. Based on the recommendations of the report, I would now like to show you a video which examines the importance of linkages between academia and the private sector when it comes to promoting and retaining women and girls in science. This is also a very important aspect, since some women scientists chose remain in academia, others prefer to move on into industry or the private sector in general. And all along, the two worlds must remain closely connected. Here we are.
In addition to theoretical knowledge, technological skills are critical to the advancement of science. However, the shift from academia to industry has not been easy for women scientists in India, leading to fewer women in technology-intensive workspaces. It's time to bridge the gap between these two worlds. At the Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women, efforts are being made to actively address these gaps.
At the end of every year, we call all our industry partners, take feedback from them as to what more needs to be done, what is the contemporary need of the industry, and how can we bridge that gap to drive more girls into STEM and build up a stronger relation with the industry.
The internships have also helped me to gain industry experience and also gain confidence. I feel these are important for one to interact with industry so that when we enter the industry, we do not lack in self-confidence and we know how to deal with industry-related pressures and tasks.
A 2022 UNESCO publication on Indian women in science suggests that academia and private sector linkages should be established at the school level for equipping young women with technical skills and capabilities. Brilio is one such company supporting the early education of girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
In my mind is that you can invest in your social responsibility program at the early school level intervention, create more curiosity, more interest in science subjects, give them some opportunity to kind of experience it in your workplace. You can invite to your offices, invest in STEM scholarship. You can also mentor them and give them a lot of opportunities to kind of interact with the existing women workforce at your place.
Even though most women scientists are trained to pursue a career in research and teaching, an exchange of ideas between university innovators and private enterprises could enable transformative scientific discoveries for socially relevant innovations.
Several of my colleagues who work in engineering, they develop products which are translatable, and they need industry partnership to take it to society. The question should be extended further to say, how can industry chip into academia so that the basic science, which is the fodder for new ideas, can continue to happen.
In India, more and more private companies are encouraging women to do science by providing unbiased work opportunities, a safer and inclusive work environment, and by boosting women's participation in science-related careers. Honeywell is creating an inclusive network through gender-responsive policies to enhance women's representation. We must reinforce academia and private sector linkages to enhance professional opportunities for women scientists who will further contribute to the larger scientific community.
In fact, private sector can play a vital role in multiple ways. One being a fair employer where, they ensure that the diversity, equity and inclusion will be part of their recruitment policy. And in terms of retention, they will have more women-friendly policies. At Honeywell, we ensure this. And in addition to this, I think CSR, corporate social responsibility, is a great arm to ensure that they can be social change agents.
For this particular segment, we would have liked to have more Indian companies represented, but to further comment on private sector academia linkages, we have with us Ms. Shivani Kumar, who leads the Gender and Advocacy section of the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII Foundation. So Shivani, thank you for joining us. And can you please give us your views on this particular point?
Thank you. And I'm sincerely hoping that I'm not supposed to answer the question as to how we're going to bridge the gap. But I think based on the work that we've done with professional women and with industry, I would like to offer some more thoughts and comments on some things that have come out. And I think it is great that, academic institutions are reaching out to industry to say, how can academics be made more relevant? But I think at the same time, it is also useful to reflect on what can industry really do to make the ecosystem seem more friendly for women to sort of enter. And I think there were some comments from what Honeywell was saying, but I think more than just policies and programs, how do we really communicate the scientific professional space as a space where women can participate, right? Does it have to sound as this inaccessible space, or can it actually be presented in a way which is, workable for women in science to actually become professionals in science? And I say this again based on, some initiatives that have been driven by industry, where we've seen industries go into the communities and, address some of the biases that were being spoken about in earlier conversations, and actually saying that this is how the space can be designed for women to contribute to the best of their ability. I think we also see this because certain industries have a higher participation of women as scientific professionals as compared to certain other industries. And it is all about how they are presenting, the workspace, the work hours, the work that really needs to be done. So I think I would want to just sort of offer that apart from, policies and programs and obviously a connect between academics and what the industry requirement is, how do we really package this, or how do we really communicate the professional scientific space in a manner that not just to the woman scientist, but to her family and to the communities that she is a part of, it becomes a space that is accessible, that is something that she can participate in. And I am looking forward to reading more about that in the report and would love your thoughts as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shivani. Moving forward, I would like to remind you that an important part of UNESCO's mandate is to support countries by providing advice related to international standards and policy recommendations. So we're really first and foremost a standard-setting organization, and consider also UNESCO as a laboratory of ideas. As an intergovernmental entity, we interact first and foremost with governments at the national level, but also at the state level, and of course with all other stakeholders. So here I wanted to mention this because it's obviously an important part of our publication, and we have developed another video focusing on the promising policies that we have encountered.
In India, there have been many efforts, ongoing discussions, and actions for gender equity and inclusion in the field of science. Policies have been crafted to promote a more enabling environment for scientists to bring social, cultural, economic, and geographic inclusivity in the practice of science. However, there is still a long way to go. A 2022 UNESCO publication on Indian women in science suggests that we must implement both state and national level policies supporting women in science. Let's hear from women who have contributed to creating these policies of inclusion.
I think we need to institutionalize gender diversity policies, of course at the national level, where the government plays a very important role, but at the institution level, and every stakeholder plays an important role in it.
The Department of Science and Technology has begun a novel intervention program called Gati that institutionalizes gender equity in science.
It stands for Gender Advancement for Transforming Institutions, and I'm leading the development of the conceptual framework, the resources and guidance for it. So what does Gati do? Gati is looking at institutions rather than individual women in science, and that is going to be a game changer. The strategic intent behind this program is to nudge institutions of higher education and research towards supporting the full spectrum of diversity, inclusion, and equity for their own success.
Another initiative by the government is the Women Scientists Scheme that allows mid-career women to rejoin the workforce after a career break.
So Women Scientist Scheme is basically to attract or to bring back those women who have left their career due to some personal reason. They were
doing their academic qualification, completed their qualification till PhD or MSc or in applied science, and they want to come back. So this is the scheme where they can apply, and they write proposals for R&D in any lab, in any prestigious institution of the country, and we support with them with the fellowship amount on the basis of their eligibility criteria which has been decided under the scheme.
The scientific community, along with relevant government institutions, must together continue to design and implement policies that provide safe and harassment-free environments to women in academia, research, and other professional settings for both the promotion and retention of women in science.
Perhaps one of the areas that initially we didn't really expect to mention, but that we have found to be very important also, is the need to promote and retain women and girls in science by raising awareness, sensitizations, especially, of course, using modern technologies and ICTs, and through science communication. That is, well, in many ways what we're doing today. And to elaborate on this a particular aspect, we have with us Ms. Sarah Iqbal, who is a consultant at the Foundation for Advancing Science and Technology, FAST, here in New Delhi. Please, come.
Thank you so much, Eric. I was enjoying listening to all these stories and all other colleagues so much. I almost forgot that I am supposed to speak as well. And thank you so much for inviting me to share my thoughts. And I think we would all agree in the power of role models in inspiring young girls, and I think young people in general. And science communication plays a great role in enabling this by bringing out inspiring stories to young girls. But to inspire young girls across the country, science communication needs to be more inclusive and also culturally competent. We need to see women in science from across the country, from Kashmir to Nagaland to Manipur to Thiruvananthapuram, from various underrepresented institutions and regions in the country. And their stories need to be brought out. And by doing this, science communication can also really add more nuance to the larger discourse on women in science by really bringing out this diversity in their professional stories. And I think on similar lines, science communication needs to take into account the various socio-cultural and economic factors around women joining the scientific workforce, because it varies depending on which part of the country you're in. India is not a homogeneous cultural entity, and women in science aren't that homogeneous entity either. So communication strategies, approaches need to take that into account and adapt, because we not only need to have national role models, but we also need to have realistic local role models. And I think science communication, which is more culturally specific, sensitive, context specific, can really bring out these local role models. But I think above all, through communication and awareness raising and sensitization, we need to position women scientists or women in science at par with that of men, and not in some special conciliatory category. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. So we're getting close to the end of our program, and as previously mentioned, a key feature of our book is that in addition to the many suggestions, there are many suggestions in this book, we have a set of 10 key recommendations which are proposed for consideration at the end of the report. We hope that they will be useful for all stakeholders, especially as the government of India works towards the issues related to gender equality and raising the stature of Indian women in science. Let's look at the recommendations. I'm not going to go through all of them, don't worry, but you see them here. You will see them very prominently in the report. And of course, it echoes a lot of what has been in our program today. So this is the first set of 5 recommendations. We can go quickly to the second one. Again, this is just to flag that all of this is mentioned at the end of the report. And again, you recognize most of what we've tried to cover in the launch today. We're here also today because gender equality is really one of UNESCO's global priority areas, and we've created many activities in the field of natural sciences as well as social and human sciences. One of them, if some of you I'm sure know it, I hope, is our Women in Science program, which is decades old. You may know in particular the international award we have developed with the company L'Oréal, which aims every year to recognize women researchers who, through the scope of their work, have contributed to overcoming today's global challenges. Many of the women who won the UNESCO L'Oréal International Award have gone on also to win Nobel Prizes in various scientific fields. But I really want to mention something which to me looks an aberration. It's very surprising that there has not been an Indian winner in exactly 20 years. And we recognize one per region. The last Indian woman who received this award was Professor Indira Nath, who maybe some of you knew her. She was recognized at the time for her work on the eradication of leprosy. She died just a few months ago. Personally, I find the absence of Indian women among the laureates quite shocking. And it is not because obviously there's a dearth of Indian women scientists who are worthy of the recognition, but simply because they don't get nominated by the relevant authorities. And well, together, I really think that we should pledge to change that. And our office is, of course, happy to provide guidance on the nomination process. That's all we can do because we have to stay out afterwards of the process. It's already too late for 2022, but perhaps we can change that for 2023. Another moment that we have created is the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, which is celebrated every year on 11 February, and which is a joint responsibility of UNESCO and our friends from UN Women. This day is an opportunity to promote full and equal access and participation in science for women and girls. And that is why I'm very happy to have also here with us my colleague and friend Susan Ferguson, the country representative for UN Women. Susan, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's a very busy day today, and I'm sure tomorrow, I'm sure Shambi also. You came from another International Women's Day event, but thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Eric, and good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here on this really important occasion. And I love what I've already seen of it. It's just beautiful images and things. I just wanted to say, you know, the reason that this is important for UN Women, this issue of women in STEM, is because, you know, we need to make sure that 50% of, you know, both, I mean, well, we need to make sure 100% of women and men can contribute to the development of their countries and the world. And we know the stats are not good for women in science being a part of that contribution. So it's really wonderful to see that a number of the recommendations also talk about the range of different things that need to be in place. The change in women ourselves around our own biases and internalizing those external biases, and then the institutional changes too. So just quickly, I wanted to say that you know, 90% of jobs for the future will have a focus on STEM. And so again, you know, it's so important for women to be a part of contributing to the jobs for the world. You know, we know that in India, I think that it's something like 14% of jobs in science are allocated to women or done by women. And that's, you know, India isn't alone in that. So we can all do more to increase the number of women in science. I just wanted to say that around the biases, these are often things that are invisible and therefore very difficult to deal with. In my own life, I did very well in science and maths all through primary school. I hit adolescence and I just gave up on it. I absorbed these norms that say that girls are good at English and the humanities because we're more caring, and boys are better at the hard-nosed, you know, scientific areas of work. And I'm so regretful that I did that. I didn't have a mentor. You know, I didn't have women standing up who are scientists saying, you know, you can do this. So, and I really wish I had it because, you know, maybe I would have had your job, Roderico. as head of WHO, you know. So I think that these things we all need to be very conscious of, and we're all subject to as well. And we can do more, and I think that your contribution here today shows that. Thank you very much, Eric, and everyone. And happy International Women's Day for tomorrow and today too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. So the time has come finally to unveil the publication, and I'm asking our team to begin the distribution of our book, A Braided River, The Universe of Indian Women in Science. You will each get a copy. So the production of this report involved many contributors. I can't name all of them, but they are mentioned in the book. It really represents a labor of love of 9 months since the time I presented the idea to our UNESCO Assistant Director General for Natural Sciences, Shamila Nair-Bedouel. It's still early in Paris, so I don't know if she's following the link on Facebook, but I'm very grateful to her for the trust that she placed in our UNESCO New Delhi team, and I wish to thank all the researchers, the editorial board members, the reviewers, the technical editors and the designers, and really all those who contributed to the extremely complex production of A Braided River. A special mention goes to our natural sciences team led by Benabur. He's there. It also, our team also includes Neha Mida, and of course the ever active and ever watchful Nimita Pandey. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that everybody has a copy of the book now, so we're going to do this the other way from traditional launches where people like to have a picture of a few people on the stage. The photographers are going to come to the stage, please, and we're all going to show the book. Maybe you can give me an extra one for myself. Can I have a copy? Thank you. And I will ask that you all raise and show the book to the photographers so they can take one of the pictures that everybody seems to love so much when we do these things. But please stand up. Yeah, show this one, just this one. So we all show the same thing. Okay, thank you. So thank you to all also who have joined us today, both here in the auditorium and the people who joined us for the Facebook Live. Please enjoy A Braided River, The Universe of Indian Women in Science, and of course, as Susan said, happy International Women's Day to all women scientists and to all women. Thank you very much. Dhanyavad.